goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello there, and welcome to finally a sunless day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Shouldn't be complaining about it, and we do need some rain, so let's hope we get some. Okay. It being Tuesday, May 7th, in fact, my sister is joining us from sunny St. Louis, so we've changed places, and that's good. Hi, Suze.
Yeah, maybe may you get some of our rain. I feel so sorry for the farmers around here.
Because they've got nothing but,
I mean, you know,
they can't
beware
plant.
the cost of gasoline if you have ethanol in yours or anything made with corn, because last year, due to drought, the nation's bread basket had a bad crop, and this year they can't even get it in.
Oh boy, more of that to come. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's sort of, you know, you have to rethink all of these things that we do to keep our cars running. Anyway,
right, and it also it just makes you more mindful. It's like a tap on the shoulder. It makes you mindful of, you know, where all this stuff we consume, you know, comes from, and that there are things that impact it, and that, you know, something...
In the very near future, you might not want to be diverting food to fuel.
And that, that's a farmer's tragedy. One farmer's tragedy today is your pain in the neck tomorrow, whatever. It's... In that regard, at least we learned something. It's an interesting news day, Susan. And
yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on and stories to tell. Locally here, right now, 10 o'clock our time, former State Supreme Court Justice, which Melvin is she? Which Orie is she? They all have J's.
Oh, is another one being sentenced today?
The justice is being sentenced today, along with her sister. Another sister is already in jail, the state senator, and serving time. So this one, unbelievable. They'll be sentenced now, and could be looking at as much as 4 years. We'll see. Unbelievable. 3 sisters, all, highly educated public servants.
Well, but
going down.
There's something to be said about if this is the culture of the way your political system works, that's the culture of the way your political system works, and suddenly someone started enforcing the rules.
Yeah. We're finally, but I just think what's amazing.
It's hard not to believe that people don't know what's right and what's wrong.
Well, exactly right. And since we've had a number of high-profile state politicians go down in the last 4 or 5 years, exactly for the same reasons, and then more just keep doing it. It's mind-boggling. Check back on your history of Illinois governors. You would think that, over the course of years, they'd notice at the end of each term a governor ends up in jail. It's amazing. It's amazing. God. All righty. So I'll keep my eye on my little Twitter account.
And Harrisburg got audited and made the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
I know. Front page Wall Street Journal today that the Securities and Exchange Commission, apparently the first time ever, has they've actually, have they fined or issued
They haven't fined them yet.
They're
bankrupt already, but they haven't fined them yet. But,
They
outright, they say misrepresented, which is legal speak for lied.
About the financial state of the city.
Right, about their rating.
Right.
They said that they were, big A, 2 little A's, and they were really big B, 2 little A's.
So anyway, well, that's fraud.
Yeah.
According to the SEC. But how do you take action against a city government if you're the SEC? I mean, what do you do? And it's a bankrupt city at that.
Right, because you're just finding the already mal-served
taxpayers.
Residents.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I don't know what you do, but I guess the idea is the SEC wanted to tell other cities, hey guys, this amounts to fraud, because the odds are other cities have done the same.
Not only the odds are, they say that there's dozens of them, which would just say to me that if you are, in the high-class position of having a little extra cash and you're looking to invest in municipal bonds because they're tax-free in most cases,
you would check it out yourself.
Better do some research.
Yeah, of course. Don't take the city's, word for what good shape they're in.
Don't take the city's word for what the city says. Moody's says about them. Ask Moody's.
And even then, Moody's, which should probably be in jail if you could stick corporations.
Right. Moody's has already been shown to sell itself down the river multiple times.
As does Standard & Poor's. The whole thing is corrupted. The whole dang thing. Another big story is obviously the finding of these 3 women who anybody would have thought were dead by now. All of them abducted in 10 years ago or more. And these stories are also always fascinating but those, thank God they're free. But wow, what a nightmare story we're going to be told.
Can you imagine that 3 brothers somehow can all share the fantasy that they have the right to go out and get themselves a woman?
It is odd, isn't it?
It's really strange. You can understand that one might have, a sexual aberration, as it were, but that all 3 would share it? I think that's very strange.
Well,
it's extraordinarily frightening. And then you follow that up with the head sexual assault investigator in the Air Force being arrested for sexual assault.
That was the first one I saw today when I thought, oh my God. And you wonder why the Air Force has been having such difficulty getting its folks, its men, under control. Yeah, in this regard, and
right,
and then it turns out the guy who's in charge of getting getting rid of sexual assault and going after sexual assaulters in the Air Force is grabbing a woman's breasts and buttocks in a parking lot. What? I mean, just as flummoxed as you are by the idea of three brothers all sharing the same, what you said it was a fantasy. Suze?
Whatever it is.
Whatever
That's a
it
very
is.
nice word for what they did. I think I also said aberration.
Whatever it is. I mean, the fact that the guy who's in charge of sexual assault for the Air Force...
What's disturbing to me is that we are seeing a pattern here that makes it, that begins to say to me, speaking of culture, that it ain't an aberration. That there is actually something coming out in this culture that says, it's not so unreasonable. I mean, the dreaded, all those people that we think that we couldn't possibly be like or want to be like, and that we've lumped as one, who treat their women, badly and keep them undercover and rape them and then stone them for being impure. Those women. Well, we have those men that live right here. Obviously, they serve in our armed forces. It's a culture at this point. These three brothers, I don't think maybe it's not an aberration. Maybe it's just of a culture. That's what's so frightening. That women who now decry calling themselves feminists aren't noticing how much ground they're actually losing.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the ways that you see it.
It's amazing. I know. It's a blah, 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 blah. Amazing. So, speaking of culture, Susan, in our country, and destructive...
And we don't mean opera?
No, we don't mean opera, and we don't mean in some science lab. Speaking of culture and destructive aspects of American culture, let us return to that always incendiary topic of guns. Guns. Have you seen the report out earlier, maybe it came out late last week, on suicide? It is astonishing. Suicide in this country kills twice as many people as does homicide. Does that shock you? It shocked me. Twice.
No, it doesn't shock me,
okay.
Go ahead.
Twice as many people kill themselves as are killed. And for every one of those successful suicides, there are another 4 or 5 unsuccessful. That's a lot of people trying to kill themselves. Of course, the method of choice is the gun. And because guns are so readily available to so many Americans, what they are finding is a lot of the suicides, especially of young people, are guns, readily available, and just a sort of instantaneous, I can't do it anymore, I want to die, bang, you're dead. Where there's no thought, there's no anything, it's an impulse, because we know that adolescents don't have a lot of impulse control, especially if they're depressed at the time. And so you see a lot of dead people who would not be dead if the gun hadn't been available. And yet Americans still think that that gun in their house makes them safer. What does it take till they understand that it doesn't?
Well, I mean, you heard the story of the
boy,
4 or 5-year-old that got his first little first gun and blew his 2-year-old sister away.
Sure. Yeah. So,
I mean,
but in regard to suicide and guns, and I have an email from one of our listeners that I want to share with you. When I brought up this suicide talk on, I think, Friday initially, and then yesterday I talked about it a little bit more, I received 2 emails from members of this audience. And one is in that, actually they're both, I think, in the demographic is the fastest growing suicide demographic that showed a 38% hike in the last 10 years, and that is men between the ages of 35 and 64.
Right.
And one said, he's unemployed, he's despondent, he is in treatment. He says he has a wonderful wife who's helping him, but that, yes, he has felt suicidal. Here's the other one, and I haven't shared this with you yet. I was molested by a male neighbor. I am a male. Numerous times when I was between 8 and 10 years of age. I dealt with severe depression through most of my teens and into my 20s. I had some bad things happen to me when in my 20s as well that were actions I did as a result of the molestation. I had no guns in my house. But I went on a weekend trip with a friend of mine who was a hunter. He had a gun. I saw an easy solution to end the pain when he passed out drunk. I put the gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger. The gun didn't fire. I don't know why. I do know that it was the greatest event of my life. It gave me a second chance. I had hundreds of hours of therapy and more medication than I can count, and I am now through and off. I have the greatest wife anyone could ask for. I do know this. I would have never attempted suicide if I didn't have that gun. I never tried before or after that. Boy, that is one lucky, lucky, lucky man. So in my audience, I bring this subject up and 2 people share their stories with us. You got to figure that's not all that's out there in my audience. The 2 would share it. Again, shows how big this is. The suicidal tendencies, and also coupled with, when you couple it with the availability of guns, where unlike the luck that this writer had of the gun for some reason not going off, you're gone. You're gone. And if you didn't feel quite so bad the next day, well, you ain't around to find that out. Unbelievable to me. But we love our guns. And speaking of guns, the most frightening thing I have ever learned, also courtesy of one of you, actually Ray, Susan, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this is mind-blowing. We have someone in the audience, Ray, one of our favorite emailers, who is on the other side of the gun control debate, which shocked me because I think of him as such an intelligent person. And he finally got through to me that the reason he's against gun control is he says it ain't going to work. It's not going to work. It's not the way to rid ourselves of whatever this problem, this scourge, however you want to talk about it, is. And what he told me is that people will very soon be able to build their own guns in their basements, and they will be able to do it by printing the gun. Now, see, I didn't understand that.
No, I thought that's where this was going. Yes.
Okay. Well, the news is finally really broke this week because there's a 25-year-old University of Texas law student. Cody Wilson is his name. And he's obviously a very clever guy, too, and a staunch believer in, I guess, the ability to make your own gun. He has been working for a long time to create the first entirely 3D printable handgun. Now, if you're as clueless as me, what that means is there are blueprints And there are printers that
it's
with
actually,
plastic.
You simply send it to a fabricator.
Yeah,
you print it. You which is a machine.
It's a machine.
So so instead of the instructions for the machine will tell it how to cut out the pieces and what to do with them, and it will fabricate the gun according to the directions that that are sent to it. It's a computer. And it's a computer that runs a machine.
And it's software. So there's
software.
Okay,
yeah.
So what has happened is this guy has a nonprofit group called Defense Distributed, and he has printed the blueprints at defcad.org. And all you need to get is that printer from a 3D printing company, such as there's one called Stratasys. And you can rent these things. Then you get the software that he's put on the internet, and it makes, it's made out of plastic. It makes this gun, which has been his gun has been test fired. It works. It works. The only non-printed component in the gun he made is a 6-ounce chunk of steel, which he put into the body to comply with the Undetectable Firearms Act, because a totally plastic gun
can go
through any metal detector. It is
but now now you have to rely on him.
That is
correct.
On the
maker to put that in.
That is correct, and that's what they say. So people who use his blueprint may not be so, law-abiding. And so once this thing is online, and it is, anyone is going to be able to download and print the gun at home, legally or not. It will possess no serial number. There will be no background check, and there's no way to regulate that. So you can print a lethal device. You can print a lethal device. This group 2 has sought to make, it says here, as many components of a gun as possible into printable blueprints and to host those files online, thwarting gun laws. And here's one for the civil libertarians, and blurring the lines between the regulations of firearms and censorship of information. Well, I have to tell you that already there is a congressman, Steve Israel, out of New York, who's on top of this. He had seen it coming. He's been warning people. And here was his response on Friday. Security checkpoints, background checks, and gun regulations are going to do little good. This is what my caller's been saying, what Ray's been saying. If criminals can simply print plastic firearms at home and bring those firearms through metal detectors with no one the wiser. And he says, I started talking about this issue of plastic firearms months ago, and I was told that the idea was science fiction. Well, it ain't anymore. It is here, and we've got to figure out how to ban it. So Ray has been telling us forever, fine, pass these laws. I'll be able to, I want a gun, I'll print my own. What a world we're living in. Susan.
Yeah, I know.
What a world.
No, I'm fully aware.
I know you are,
and
but
and I live in a part of the world where armed insurrection ain't such a strange notion.
Well, apparently 44% of Republicans agree with the statement. Did you see this poll?
Yes.
That a armed rebellion against the government of the United States is likely in the next, in soon. soon.
And I thought there was one that said may be necessary.
Oh, I think that's it. May be necessary.
See, I find that far more frightening.
Yeah, that's scary. You're right. May be necessary in the near future. 44% of Republicans agreed with that, and when you extrapolate all the responses and blah, 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 you get close to 20% of Americans agree with that statement. No, more than 20. 26%, was it? 29%.
I think it was 29.
It was 29. You're right. It was 29. It was a third. What is going on in our country? If you've got almost half of one political party saying that armed rebellion against the government may be necessary.
Well, and let's be clear, this is the part of the Republican Party that doesn't even like the Republican Party.
That is correct.
And that, pretty soon is probably going to implode the Republican Party because they're just going to go out on their own and, I don't know, revolt or something. But it's scary, and I live in a place where they're the majority.
Yeah,
I mean, I live in a little sea of blue, but the rest of the state is, and I am beginning to feel like I actually
should get out of there.
Would be safer if I lived someplace else.
Head to the Northeast, where gay people can marry, and other things are better. Do you know every New England state now has gay marriage? Every single one.
Yeah.
Ah.
I just think it's funny because it's a group of,
Well, they're libertarian, essentially.
Right.
Stay out of my business, right?
They're the very definition of live free or die.
That's right. You want to do it? Go right ahead. I got no problem with it. Ain't bothering me. Okay, well, enough of this heavy-duty stuff. When we come back...
Wait.
No. Well, why do they do that to me? Okay, we got to call her. Can't help it. Hello?
Wait for it.
Hello?
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Hi, Mike.
I wish that question about armed insurrection would have had a follow-up. And who do you think will win?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if these crackpots think that the Department of Defense isn't all over this, they're crazy.
Yeah,
all you have to do is walk in any picket line or protest that's not been approved by the state, and you will see that city, as you guys did when they hosted that big event, a city that you cannot believe. So these crackpots that think that they're going to have some revolution against the country are crazy.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking of, and then my head went off in another direction. I mean, think of what are they thinking? Even if it constitutes a third of the country, have they noticed, and largely because they favor, a strong military, have they noticed the firepower that government they want to overthrow possesses?
The government can kill you with a flying machine the size of a fly.
Yeah, I just saw it.
You think your guns in your basement are going to protect you?
Well, there again, it shows the level of absolute craziness.
They're only talking to each other, and they're living out in, I mean, at least in my state, they're living out in the country, and they're only speaking to each other. And as was witnessed by some people that I knew 2 weekends ago, frequently they're meeting in Ku Klux Klan outfits right out in the open, having meetings in public parks.
Oh,
and don't for a minute think the FBI isn't all over this or all over that
the cops are bringing
online software that can make a gun. The Department of Defense already has 10 people on that, and anybody who even goes and looks at it, they find out who it is, and they write your name and number down.
Oh,
Nothing is in secret anymore. These people are crazy.
Well, I think that sums it up for me.
Well, go on your break.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, and they think...
They're crazy, but that doesn't make them any less scary.
Or dangerous.
Or dangerous.
And they think we're nuts.
Yeah.
I got news for them. They're wrong! They're wrong! You are so wrong! Excuse me. We have to take a break. We'll be right back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
It's warming up outside, so get to Little's for all your spring needs. Little's has everything for men, women, and children to stay in style for this upcoming hot summer. Lots of great colors from Dansko, New Balance, Steve Madden, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
I love this time of year. I always have Band-Aids on my fingers. I've got one here and dirt under my nails. I love it. You know where I'd love to go? The Urban Gardener on the north side. They have everything. I love this place. Mostly I love it because it is so welcoming. The people there know their stuff. They can help you. They will, in fact, come to your house if you want and help you design a garden. And they'll even take care of it for you if you want. But there's joy in taking care of it yourself. And their specialty is city gardens. Urban Gardener. Check them out on their website. They are unbelievable. They send out regular emails that help you, helpful tips. They're at urbangardenerpgh.com. Everything you want, perennials, annuals, vines, trees, shrubs, accessories, blah, 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 blah. Everything. Here's what you want to know. When you go there, 1901 Brighton Road, north side, say, Lynn Cullen, and guess what? 5% off the purchase. Lynn Cullen saves you money. Okay? Do it. I'll see you there.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. Like us on Facebook or sign up for our weekly email updates for your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets to Kennywood. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. Bergbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Chuck writes, the cost of creating a gun with a 3D printer is dozens of times more expensive than simply buying a gun. 3D printers of the type that created this gun are extremely expensive. There are many types of 3D printers, but many cannot perform the complex processes that would necessarily create a gun. By the way, 3D printers are being used for some wonderful purposes, like creating tactile images for the blind, repairing degenerative spinal discs, and other things. You can, however, buy a low-end 3D printer at Staples for $1,300. Well, those prices will come
and those things
down.
are good for, when you see a part that you just want, that you can't figure out how to replace. You know what it looks like. You can draw it and fabricate it.
Jeez. And there are places, like I know in Pittsburgh, there's this tech place where they have a lot of these kinds of machines that you yourself are not going to buy, but you can go in there and use them and or learn how to operate them. And I forget what they call that place, but it's near my house, and it looks fascinating.
Well, but it would be fairly simple. I mean, first of all, it's still not going to be. They're going to charge for the time, and it's not going to be cheap because they got to pay for the machine somehow.
If you wanted this undetectable plastic gun, you can get it. You'll be able to.
Well, maybe, but you see, if mostly the machines are held by, companies, then you can make it illegal for the company to allow it, it to manufacture firearms.
Yeah.
I mean, in that sense, that would be a regulatable point.
Did you hear about the guy who spent some time inside a hippo's mouth?
No, I actually have to say that you got me on that one.
All right, good. It's not easy to do, Susan. I did get you on that one. This guy was a river guide on the Zambezi, and he's older now, and he's finally writing his story. Good God. There was one particular hippo in this river that seemed very territorial, and he would take, people out in boats and show them the wildlife. And one day, he was also training 2 other guides, and one day this hippo, out of nowhere, came at their boats, knocked one of the trainees down and into the water. That guy was swept away and died somehow. He says he doesn't remember what happened exactly, except that suddenly it was as though I'd gone blind and deaf. I didn't understand what had happened to me. Listen to this. I was aware that my legs were surrounded by water, but my top half was almost dry. I seemed to be trapped in something slimy. There was a terrible sulfurous smell like rotten eggs and a tremendous pressure against my chest. My arms were trapped, but I managed to free one hand and felt around. My palm passed through the wiry bristles of the hippo's snout. It was only then that I realized I was underwater and I was trapped up to my waist in his mouth. So the hippo's holding him underwater. He's thinking, I'm going. He manages somehow to, he says, time passes very slowly when you're in a hippo's mouth. Eventually, the hippo did take some bites out of him. And he was finally spit out. I guess the hippo decided he didn't taste good. I don't know what. Somebody hauled him ashore. He had 40 puncture wounds. His lung was exposed. His arm was just chewed up and had to be amputated. But he survived. Inside.
Absolutely amazing.
Inside a hippo's mouth. Can you imagine the initial thing of he really did not know where he was or what was happening? He couldn't place what this environment was. God! But we now know that hippos have bad breath. Overwhelmed by a sulfurous smell.
Well, it's the smell of digestion and, gas.
Well, a hippo has never brushed his teeth. I mean, God only knows what that smells like. Well, if the Orie sisters have been sentenced, man, they're taking their time today because there's nothing in on that. In case you're... Hey, did you see Governor Christie had lap band surgery?
Lap band surgery. 3 months ago. Have you noticed anything?
February. So February, March, April. Well, yeah. Listen, there's a lot to... He must have lost some weight by now. He probably has lost about 20 pounds by now, but 20 pounds on him might not get noticed right away.
No.
But
it takes a while before it's noticeable.
But you'll start seeing him, go down. And
good.
It's good.
I'm glad for him.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, and he said it wasn't, everybody said, so you can run for president. And he said, no, that's not really it, although I'm sure that's some of it. It's that he wanted to live.
Yeah.
He wanted to stay alive.
I think that's, and I'll tell you something, I believe him.
Yeah. Well, sure. I believe him too. And I believe he is the only person who can, well, that might not be true. If I were the Republicans, but of course they'll never nominate him. They
won't nominate him.
He could give Hillary a run.
I think if Hillary is running, I don't think anyone wants to run against her.
He could conceivably be the only one who would peel off independence from her. Even Democrats like him a lot, so he would peel off all the people that would be wanting to. I mean, there's no way Rubio's going to do it.
No.
And now Rubio's getting to be too liberal because he actually wants to...
he wants to pass an immigration bill.
I'll tell you, he must be a communist. I think he's a communist. Okay.
No, he's just an agent for all of those, illegals.
It is the anniversary today, Susan, of the 100-year anniversary, actually, of the writing of a poem. It is a poem that you had to memorize in school, as did I. Let us see if we can still do it. Actually, I have a cheat sheet. You can come on in whenever the spirit moves you.
I won't come in. Go ahead.
I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree.
As a tree. Right.
There, see, you know it. A tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast. Tee-hee-hee-hee-hee-hee. Then you all had to sort of giggle. You said breast. You said breast. Excuse me. Earth's sweet flowing breast. A tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray. A tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair. Upon whose bosom, you said bosom, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me. All together. But only God can make a tree.
This is why millions of children grew up thinking that they didn't like poetry.
Why? That's a poem that's accessible. You get it. I don't know. Anyway, it was written 100 years ago, written by Joyce Kilmer. I remember once listening to a radio newscast, and local, and the person who was doing the news quoted it, "Only God can make a tree. And when Joyce Kilmer wrote those lines, she had no idea, blah, blah, blah." And I remember thinking, she? That was a big shocker, wasn't it, that Joyce was he? Did you know that, Susan?
I think I did know that.
Joyce is he. Yes. And here is something fascinating. This is one of the more, it was the most popular poem of the 20th century. I kid you not. It was memorized by kids from 1916 on. And during World War I, there was a poet from Cleveland, a woman, who went to the front lines in World War I to entertain the troops. And one of the ways she did was recite poetry to them, upon which they all ran toward the German line saying, "Shoot me! Shoot me!" No. Her name was Eloise Robinson. So she was working with the YMCA, and she was in one of the, it says here, putrid trenches along the Western Front. And she was reciting trees. And then, to her embarrassment, she forgot the line. A hand shot up. "I can finish that for you," a sergeant said. "I wrote it." And it was, in fact, Joyce Kilmer, who had enlisted and was in that trench. And he finished up the poem for her.
Cool.
2 months later, he was killed by a German sniper. 2 months later, he's dead. Age of 31. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Is that a good story? And they also say that it is the most parodied poem ever. Because everybody knew it, it's easy to then use it for that purpose. And because it's such a, da-da-da-da-da-da, it's easy. And the more famous one is one, I don't have the whole thing, is Ogden Nash's. "I think that I shall never see a billboard lovely as a tree. Indeed, unless the billboards fall, I'll never see a tree at all." That's a good one.
I like that one better.
Yeah, and there's one I remember, and our brother would be able to recite it. Mad Magazine did a parody of it. And if somebody can find that, send it. I remember it being very funny. Actually, Mad Magazine did a a whole poetry edition that was just unbelievable parodies of a lot. But I'm sure they did trees as well. All right, time for another break. And where else can you find such news? The stench of a hippo's mouth. The poignant story of Joyce Kilmer's last recitation of his famous poem, Trees. And God knows what awaits you after this.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Give the gift of beauty and youth this Mother's Day. Join us Saturday, May 11th for a day of rejuvenation, skincare, and fun at the Sewickley Med Spa. Purchase one microdermabrasion and Mom gets a free microdermabrasion. Log on to SewickleyMedSpa.com or call 412-259-8628 for details. Sewickley Med Spa is conveniently located in downtown Sewickley at 435 Broad Street. Happy Mother's Day from the Sewickley Med Spa.
Pittsburgh City Paper is seeking 10 local artists to design their own street box for our second annual public art project to be featured throughout the city of Pittsburgh. Go to www.pghcitypaper.com and click on the Art Box link for more details. The Pittsburgh City Paper Art Box Project, brought to you by the Westmoreland and Hill House Association.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
All righty, we've got an email from Ray, and I think this is aimed at Mike in D.C., who was poo-pooing the idea of, even printing these 3D guns, somehow being something we don't really have to worry about because the government knows all this stuff and they'll shut it down or whatever. Ray writes this: don't make the mistake of underestimating the ability of a few crazies who have the know-how to create a whole lot of damage. If this government and its military could track insurgents and stop the flow of underground weapons, we would have been out of Afghanistan a long time ago. Whenever the war on drugs makes a bust, they parade it out on tables to show their success. But be assured that while they are posing for the photo op, there are 100 more deliveries being made. The government can't stop it. What makes you think they will be any better at 3D printers and underground guns? The printers are getting cheaper all the time, just like all technology. Give it 5 to 10 years, and we will all have access to them. We are deceiving ourselves if we continue to rely on this giant government and its laws to rein in the discontent all around us. We have to sit down and figure out why we are so crazy, not just accept it and try to legislate sanity. Whoa, that's a heavy last line.
Yeah.
We are deceiving ourselves if we continue to rely on this giant government and its laws to rein in the discontent all around us. Well, discontent's okay. It's when discontent turns to insurrection, it's not okay. There are people clearly and whole industries, and I'll give you the industry I'm sort of in, the talk industry, that make their living off of fomenting discontent, right?
Yes, but, did you, on that order, did you read today that Mr. Limbaugh has had trouble getting any of his national advertisers back?
Right. That's right. No, his show doesn't have anywhere near the audience he used to have. And it's because, and well, also advertisers don't want to be associated with him.
Yeah, he can't get all of his national advertisers fled when he did that slut thing.
It was the slut thing.
If that finally got enough women's attentions that they turned.
Well, but there's so many of them still out there, and I don't know. We have to sit down and figure out why we are so crazy. Well,
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that I don't know why we're so crazy, but there's a lot of problems that face this country. Not the least of which is that in the 70s we decided to close all the mental institutions. Well,
that is true.
So one of the reasons that there's a lot of crazies in this country is because we turn them out. But I think what that statement defames the crazies, because I don't think those are the people that we have problems with. I think it's people that are functionally sane that we have problems with.
Right, I do too. Functionally sane, but off the rails politically, essentially, or in terms of how they perceive the world around them, their environment. And I mean, anyone who has fallen for the idea of equating freedom, the freedom that we cherish as Americans, with their gun, I think is already showing signs of some trouble. Freedom as a gun. Come on. Hey, PJ and Global Sim, thank you. I got 2 people who sent me the tree parody from Mad Magazine. Are we ready for a... See, I don't remember this one, but here it is. I think that I shall never hear a poem lovelier than beer, the stuff that Joe's bar has on tap, with golden base and snowy cap. The foamy stuff I drink all day until my memory melts away. Poems are made by fools, I fear, but only Schlitz can make a beer. There it is. Susan, you're not laughing.
No.
Well, geez.
I didn't think that one was as good as the other one.
It's not as good as Ogden Ashes, that's true.
No.
So what do you think's happening to the Orie sisters? Because nothing has come in. That thing's supposed to start at 10. How
everybody's having their say-so.
Do you think they're like on their knees begging the judge not to send them off? I mean, the judge, Susan, has 6 children and an old father.
Who cares?
I agree.
The judge should have thought of that before the judge broke the judge's laws that she's sworn to uphold and protect.
Right.
Who cares? I don't have this, and these are the very same people that run around screaming about how terrible the government is.
I understand your anger.
Yeah, I mean, phooey on them. And then to everybody else, I'd like to remind them that the government is made up by people that if you were exercising your right to vote, you put in office, and you voted for them. They didn't suddenly become someplace else. They said someone else. They didn't suddenly morph into a structure called the enemy federal government. It's just such.
But there's been lots of people telling you for years and years and you know, if you think of when this went mainstream, this fear the government thing, here's who I put it on. And it's why I say, even though he's been gone into history as like this great president, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan, affable, handsome, avuncular, wonderful Ronald Reagan, who this country fell in love with,
I never did. I mean, did you?
No, but in retrospect, you see how easy. I see why the country fell in love. I do. I can see it. It was the greatest role he ever played, and he didn't completely screw everything up. Whatever. He's the one who made it perfectly respectable to say, the government is your enemy. What did he say? The 7 most scary words in the English language are something. It's not 7. Somebody can count them. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. 9. So he demeaned government, said government was the problem. And you take that just becomes sort of a bedrock baseline for, I think, more than half the population. It's a given now.
Yeah, well, it's a given in a culture of people that don't want to actually think about anything because it's just too hard and painful.
Huh. I don't know.
You just listen to what other people tell you. You don't do any independent reading or thinking about these things. You just accept because there's something in your personality that makes you want to believe whatever authority it is, to trust them, not them.
You know, I was listening to that horrible Wayne LaPierre the other day.
I can't. How could you? I can't.
Well, he
anymore.
came on whatever show I was probably watching something on
Some
Amazon.
news show.
He came on, and here's what I heard. You know, something about it was like, yeah, and right now, be afraid because someone is, looking to. What about the person who's looking to assault your daughter? What about the person who's waiting to? And it was like this litany of, oh my God, everything is to be feared. Everything. Think of all the horror around you, and you have got to have a gun. And I was thinking, what a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean,
a
gun
life.
wouldn't have helped those 3 girls that were kidnapped from, Burger King on their way home, or, no.
Well, they say it would if that girl had a gun.
Oh, you're going to arm your 14-year-old daughter's going to carry a gun to Burger King and home.
Well, you betcha, baby. Suze, it's, Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, and speaking of guns, there's one other little local note here I want to share. Remember last Halloween, guys? There was some family having a Halloween party, and the kids were outside in their costumes, and they were running all over the place. And somebody in the family thought he saw a skunk. You remember this? Thought he
shot a kid?
Yes. It was not a skunk. Yes, it was an 8-year-old girl in her Halloween costume. He was a member of the family, I believe. He was 25 years old. He pleaded no contest on Monday to a misdemeanor, simple assault, and reckless endangerment. She was not killed, but she was hospitalized for some time, and God knows what injuries she has. So that's he pleaded no contest, and he was given probation. 2 years probation.
Idiot.
Well, shoot first. Ask questions later.
It looks like a skunk.
I think I'll shoot. What?
Forgetting, of course, it's Halloween.
Well, you just wonder what the hell is with these people. Oh. Okay.
And what's with these judges that, don't want to punish all these nice, well-meaning folks who are blowing each other away by accident?
Yeah. What do you mean? Which judges you talking about?
Well, I mean, I'm back to the case for the little boy, horrifically shot his little... The whole town is up in arms. This isn't about guns. This is a terrible accident. Yeah, it's a terrible accident caused by the judgment of stupid adults.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. It's just...
The culture is we are just split. There are these two universes. We don't talk the same language anymore. It sounds like we're both talking English, but there's no comprehension anymore at all. So somebody...
I finally just said to a couple people in the family to insist on talking to me about this, that, I just wish you'd do a little research on when the culture in the United States changed from everybody shouldn't have a gun, from guns are not all about our only way to freedom, from this national conversation. Just look at exactly when that happened and what it had to do with the NRA and why you're falling for this advertising nonsense from the arms industry.
That's what it is.
Why are you this willing pawn?
They needed
when you
to
think
sell.
You're so brilliant.
That's right. They needed to sell more guns because guns,
And now we've sold them to all the grown-ups, so now we want to sell them to your 3-year-old.
Yes, we do.
Otherwise thinking people, it's really, okay, I understand that it won't do any good, so why do we care, blah, 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 blah. But it does do good in the sense that it at least sets a societal goal, a societal ethic. It's the same reason why you tell your kids, don't drink alcohol at that party. You might think that they will anyway, but at least they ought to know that they're crossing a line.
Yeah, I agree, Susan. Well,
just because
put.
People don't mind, it doesn't mean that you don't tell them the rule.
Hey, I'm going to change subjects now because there's a new word we have to learn. It's a word for a disease or a condition. It's called Orthorexia nervosa. And
ortho or orso?
Ortho. Orthorexia nervosa. And
it's a nervous ticking of the eye, maybe?
No, good try, but no. It in the thing I'm looking at, a psychologist says it is something, and I think she would not disagree. I don't like this woman; she drives me batty. Mika Brzezinski of MSNBC. She's on Morning Joe.
Yeah.
She, wears a size 2 dress and is always squawking about food. Always. It drives me crazy. And she's always like, oh, you shouldn't eat that. And you shouldn't eat that. And anybody who's eating a donut, oh, no, I'm not having that donut. You guys, you should not be. And I just think, shut up. Drives me nuts. So, turns out she's written a book. And it's called Obsessed. And she suffers from orthorexia nervosa, which is an unhealthy obsession. I love this. An unhealthy obsession with eating healthy foods.
Well, at least she recognizes that what she's doing is sick.
But don't you, there's people who are flirting with this. The people who won't let you enjoy a meal out. The people who are always saying, oh, I would never. Oh, are you going to eat that? It's women who do it. And ladies, it is joyless. It is something that is so, nobody wants to have this constant commentary, which is what the Mika Brzezinskis of the world do, about what they're choosing to eat.
No, it's rude. It's rude. It's just as rude as if you would look at your dinner partner and say, my, you're fat. And if you wouldn't think of saying, my, you're fat, then leave your comments about what they're eating to yourself.
Well, listen to this. I know we're going over, but I have to do this. Because this is a follow-up, Susan. In the book, Mika talks about the fact that she has this dear friend who is a reporter who's 5'8" and weighed more than 250 pounds. And her name is Diane Smith. And Mika said to her one day, Diane, you have a problem we need to talk about. And then she just flat out said to her, you are fat. You're fat. You're obese. You're going to die. And Mika, see, this is why I like Mika so much. Mika says then, Diane looks stunned. Yeah, I bet. Her eyes widened. It's almost like she didn't know it. I did get scared, and my heart started beating faster, and I started sweating. I thought I'd lost her friendship forever. Anyway, the friend forgave her, and Mika said, I'll tell you what. Let's both start watching the food we eat. I am going to try to gain 10 pounds. You try to lose or something. Anyway, so this friend of hers is now down, has lost like 60, 70 pounds. And Mika now says that her situation was obvious. Mine is hidden. It's a secret. It's a hidden shame. So she's saying she was able to say it because she has an opposite problem. A kind of eating disorder problem. Obsessed about food. Some people who obsess about food eat it. Some people who obsess about food think about it constantly, have to comment about it all the time, have to and then not eat it. Or draw attention to it.
She eats it. She just eats extremely healthily.
But she went through periods, Susan, of binging. She
so
did all this stuff.
She's an anorexic kind of a thinker.
And she says that she knows it's totally because she's from this extremely competitive family where you just weren't ever good enough and blah, 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 blah. And so she just tried to, do it all, be everything, whatever. So I just think that I did not know that's an eating disorder too. Somebody who appears to be thin and fit and everything. But in her head, she's screwed up about food. And just
thin is not necessarily healthy. And should not be confused with it. It's, frequently it's undernourished and weak.
Yeah. Okay, and this is one other thing I have to say. If any of you ever find yourself in a situation where you're eating with me, comment on the food at your own peril. Okay?
You can say things like this. Boy, is this good.
Yes, you can say things like that. Anything having to do with fat content, calorie content, the fact
portions,
the fact that there might be fecal material in that turkey burger. I don't want to hear any of it. Okay? Hey, Suze.
Bye. I'm late now.
I know. I'm sorry. You get out there in that sun, though.
Well, this afternoon I will. Okay. Bye.
Bye, Suze. Thanks. Okay. Hey, I got to go eat. Thank you very much. We will be joined tomorrow by Chris Potter. And as of this point, more than an hour after that sentencing hearing for the Ories was to have taken place, no news on the sentences. So, you'll find out later. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.